Good afternoon and welcome. This is Jenny McCormack at Gemini Crafts. I'm based in Brackley in the centre of the UK. Welcome to my Friday Facebook Live. Friday session is always a fun session designed for beginner card makers or families who want to do some crafting together at home. So welcome to my viewers. I'll show you what I've been doing this week and then I'll crack on with today's project. So we've been using this stamp set this week, Celebrate Sunflowers, and we've done a variety of projects with it. And these include this one here that we created on Tuesday. So all of these videos are available to go and have a look at and replay. I just realised it says Luca, not live, on my video, for which I apologise. Hi Jacqueline, hi Moretta, Tracy, Linda, Carol. So this is what we did on Tuesday using the sunflower, large sunflower. This is what we did on the Monday, amongst other things. And this is what we did yesterday using the die cuts. So lots of different variations from simple to more complicated, or more complex I should say. So these are the dies that go with the sunflower set. So if you have a die cutting machine, then you can make the most out of the whole suite. But today's session is really for beginner crafters, so I want to show you some easy ways to colour in stamped images, and that is using two items. One is watercolour pencils and one is using our ink refills. Let me take this one out of the way for the moment. So thank you all for joining me this afternoon. Yeah, it did look a bit like that, didn't it? I'll edit that later. How very strange. So we're going to be doing some watercolouring, and basically I'm going to be using our Stampin Up watercolour pencils. Now you can buy these in two different packs. They're relatively inexpensive. So basically just over £1 a pencil, and these last for ages. So they're in our catalogue on page 144 if you have a catalogue to hand. If you don't have a catalogue and you would like one, then please just comment and message me and I'll send you a copy in the post if you're in the UK. So there's a choice of 13 pencils for £15, and then there's additional pack 10 colours for £11.75, and they're different colours in each pack. Now I do have a giveaway today, because I have a complete pack of the second assortment, so that's 10 pencils. I'm giving those away today, and the colours are Cherry Cobbler, Flirty Flamingo, Cajun Craze, Crushed Curry, Granny Apple Green, Garden Green, Coastal Cabana, Balmy Blue, Night of Navy, and Gorgeous Grey. So a nice mix of colours, perfect for everyday stamping. So I'm going to be giving those away at the end of the session. So the more comments you make, the better chance you will have. Hi Lynn. Hi Linda. So I'm going to be using some of these to start with, and then for my second card I'm going to introduce our ink refills, and these are available at £3.50 each, and they're designed to refill our standard ink pads, but they can be used entirely on their own. I've got my sunflower stamp at the ready, and I've pre-cut some of our shimmer white card. Now for watercolouring, you don't want to use either cheap card or standard card. You really need a watercolour paper. Now you can get watercolour paper from most good stationers. Obviously Stampin Up sell it as well, and we sell our shimmer paper, which is very good with watercolouring techniques, and it has a slight shimmer to it. I know you won't be able to see that on my piece of card I've got down there, but it does have a nice sort of slight glitter to it right the way across. I'm going to be using our Stays On ink pad. So with watercolour, you don't want a water-based ink pad, because that could cause the ink to run when you apply the watercolour. And today I'm using one of our Aqua Painters. Now we do have some new ones of these, which I've actually lent out. Otherwise I'd be using them today. And they're very similar, but you get a pack of 3 now instead of 2 for just £11. And you have 2 small, a medium and a wide brush in the new pack, and they come in their own little packet, which is perfect for keeping them and looking after them. Carol thinks a poor hard-working nurse should have a prize. I agree. Jeanette is watching. Thank you, Jeanette. Do you not have watercolour pencils, Carol? Maybe you don't, actually. So with our watercolour pencils, it does have the colour on the side, and it has a number as well, just to make life easier for you. So all I'm going to do is stamp the beautiful sunflower stamp. Let's take the lid off properly. And say this is our saddle brown ink, which I think is currently on back order. But you could use black, but it does need to be a permanent ink or an archival ink. If you have an archival ink, that would also work. Let's pop that lid on there, and I'm just going to stamp this on here. And I'm just stamping it straight onto a square piece of card. This is 9 centimetres by 9. It might actually be 9.2. Let's give it a good amount of pressure. And there it is. In fact, I'm going to stamp both while I'm here, and then I can put that stamp away. So it has a nice, obviously a nice brown colour. So when you open a Stays On pad, they have this piece here, the protective layer. This is to stop it evaporating. So don't lose that piece. It does say do not discard. So don't lose that piece. But do remember to take it off before you stamp it. Oh dear, so that pops back on there. Often what I'll do is put a dimensional on there so that it attaches itself to the top of the ink pad. Just protects the ink pad and just makes it last longer, basically. Because you don't want it evaporating, because it's solvent based. So nice bit of pressure on there, and we've got our beautiful sunflower image. Now I can move that out of the way and have some room. Hi Pat. Okay, Linda. Carol doesn't have them. Alright, so there will be a giveaway at the end of here. I was going to say, the more comments you make, the better. But I won't do it on that, because otherwise everybody will just comment for the sake of it. So I will draw a name out at random from anybody who comments on the live today, and they will win this sealed pack of watercolour pencils worth £11.75. And if you're not local, I'll post them out. Okay. Oh, hi Scylla. Yes, I'll show you what I do actually with that dimensional. So this is the Stays On ink pad, and this just stops you losing this top, 'cause it's very easy to lose it. I'm actually going to put two on there, one on there and one on there. Take the lid off and then push this on the top. Do this with any Stays On ink pad. There you go. But you know then it's got a really good seal. Okay, so watercolouring. So the first one I'm going to do is with pencils. And I've got a selection of colours really for sunflowers. So I've got a bit of daffodil, a bit of pumpkin. I've got some brown in there for the centres, so soft suede, crushed curry, sorry, Cajun craze, and a little bit of pink and coral, just to see how these are going to come up. So there's lots of different methods with watercolour pencils, and there's lots of demonstrators that have done detailed videos on watercolouring in this way. Okay, so mine is, as usual, as you know me, a slight Gteat version, quick and simple. So I'm just taking the watercolour pencil, and very similar to the blends pens, I'm starting in the centre and drawing this out. Now you can do the whole thing just with watercolour pencils and no water, and in fact in that case you could get away with our standard ink, but this really does come to life when you water it down. So I'm just going to do this from the centres, turning this round. Okay, so all this is doing is laying down some watercolour in pencil form. Okay, like so. I can add a little bit, so this is pumpkin pie, so I can add a little bit of that in the base. Now if you have a watercolour palette, then you can mix it up separately with some water. So this is a really no fuss way of watercolouring without making the water go everywhere. Perfect for children where they've got some dexterity to do colouring, obviously. I'm putting a little bit of the darker orange in those areas behind, and then some more Daffodil Delight, and then I'm leaving the tips white for the moment. Then I'm going to take my Aqua Painter. So this has got a barrel of water and a nib, and basically the water will filter down the barrel into the nib. In the new pack you get a fine, a medium and a broad tip. This would class as a medium tip. Okay, if you're doing a very small area I recommend the fine, but if you want a bigger area for moving around then the medium tip would be perfect. What I do keep to hand is a piece of linen, so you could use kitchen roll if you wanted to, and that's so you can dab off the colour or dab off the water if there's too much water. Now you can press the sides of the barrel to feed some water down, and I find if I put it on the back of my hand I can gauge how much water is actually on the bristle of the brush. And then all I'm going to do is basically allow that colour to be picked up by the Aqua Painter. You can see, hopefully, maybe on the tip it's got a little bit of that colour. And then drawing that colour out like so. Now you will have some colour on your Aqua Painter, so what you can do is then begin to colour some of the other petals. Rather than waste it, you can add some colour onto there. We'll do the same with these little ones here. Now if you've got it too dark or too wet, just use your kitchen cloth to lift it out. Okay, you don't want this to get too wet. If you do this on normal paper, it will begin to buckle after a while. Jacqueline, let me try. It's different. It's not as good as the black. So Saddle Brown came out in our catalogue, I can't remember if it was before Christmas, I think it might have been, and it is now in our catalogue. So it is the brown stays on, and the other black stays on has an almond smell to it, and this is solvent, but it's definitely not the same. So sorry to disappoint anybody who likes the smell of the black. Oh dear. Okay, so I can just work my way round using the watercolor pencil. So ideally you don't want a real sharp point on here, because you want to be able to cover a reasonable area. So it's better the more it gets worn down. And I'm just doing my scribble colouring, which you'll know is what I do most of the time, on each of those petals. Okay, and then I can introduce the darker one. And I might introduce a little bit of pink as well. So you can take your time. You can leave it at this and come back to it later. Okay. So here I have my Aqua Painter, and again, just going to pick that up. And obviously it's picking up that orange. You can see in more detail than it is the yellow, as you would expect. It's a more highly pigmented colour. Okay, and you can sort of move that around like so. Okay, now the other thing you can do, if you prefer, is you can pick the colour up directly with the Aqua Painter. So using your sharpened pen, you can then use that to paint with. So let me just show you that. I don't know how clear that is. I'm just picking up the colour and then laying that colour down. So technically this would be quicker because you're picking up more detailed pigment in one go, and then you're spreading that around. So it really just depends on the effect that you like the most, which way round you do it, and you can do a combination, of course. So if anybody's watching that already does this with watercolor pencils, I'd love to know which way round you do it. They're the only two colours that we carry, Tracy. I believe that there are other stays on colours available, but you just need to look those up, but they're the only ones that we carry. I think a grey would look quite nice, or a green even. So there we go. Okay, so that is using watercolour pencil. So if you wanted to add in a little bit more colour, again, you can either pick up the colour straight from here, and I would recommend having an offcut of paper that you could just try it out on. Let me see if I have some. This is an offcut, and you really do want to use the same paper that you're working on, because you'll get a different effect on normal paper. The other thing you can do is apply some colour to a scrap piece. I'm hoping you can see that okay. Hi Sarah. And pick up the colour from there and paint with that. So that is another option, to do it like that. But if you wanted to do it the other way, pick up the colour with the pen. So these have to be watercolour pencils, not standard pencils. They're not expensive in the scheme of things, but you can mix and match as well. You can mix colours together, so you almost using this as a palette, if you like, and then you can go back in and add it. If this gets too wet, use your cloth just to dry it off a little bit. You can use a heat tool. If you get it very wet, you can use a heat tool to help dry it. Let's do the centre. So this is crushed curry, so sort of a yellowy brown, for want of a better description. So as I say, you can either lay it down like so and then move it around. So you can see adding that water to it brings out that colour nicely, like so. Or again, you can pick it up, and just a standard pencil sharpener for these pencils will do the job, like so. Very often I find people have watercolour pencils tucked away. They bought them maybe, you know, a few years ago, whatever, and they still have them around the house. And watercolour pencils will last forever. You know, don't go mad and keep dropping them, because you don't want the centre to break. That's usually what happens with most cheap pencils. If you drop them a few times, then the centre barrel will break up. But for watercolour pencils, you're using it in a block anyway, if that makes any sense. Hi Babsy, thanks for joining us. So we're watercolouring with pencils today to start with, and then I'm going to do some with ink refills as well. So we're using the Aqua Painter. I have a selection of watercolour pencils here, not that I've used many of them. But it gives quite a nice soft effect. I've used Stays On Saddle Brown ink because that won't run. Okay, so as a contrast, this one here was coloured with Blends pens. I've got more of a brown centre, and I've actually stamped it in early espresso, so it's a much darker colour to start with. But you can see you've got a slightly different effect. This one has also been put through an embossing folder, so it makes it look slightly different. And this is Whisper White Carb, which is a bright white. Now, one of the things I like about our shimmer white is it's a soft white, so it's halfway between white and vanilla. Looks like I need to cut this properly. So there's one variation of watercolouring using our pencils. So you can either apply the pencil straight to the paper, like so, and then use the Aqua Painter to move that colour around, like so. Or you can use the Aqua Painter to pick up the colour straight from the pencil barrel itself, like so. So, similar effect. You've got more opportunity to vary the shading here, but you could go back in with, you know, a more concentrated ink, like so, to get that effect. Okay. What I'd like to show you now is using our ink refills for watercolouring. You can also use our inks, but I just want to show you with some ink refills. So I have got the same sunflower image that I stamped earlier, and in this case I've got Mango Melody and Daffodil Delight ink refills. Now these are designed to refill your ink pads. Let me find one. So this is a Daffodil Delight ink pad, and normally what you would do with an ink refill is open up your ink pad, take the refill bottle, take the lid off, and squeeze the bottle so the liquid comes out, and run it across your ink pad, like so. Okay, you want to do in the middle and the edges. The middle is a section where most people will do their stamping, so I tend to concentrate on the middle. And then what you can do is take a block or a bone folder or ruler, something that's got a soft edge, and just move this ink around so that you get a nice even surface again. Okay, that's nicely inked up, isn't it? So that's how you would normally refill an ink pad. So if you haven't seen that done, there's a tip for you. All of our ink pads are designed to store the ink upside down, okay, which is done automatically. If you have a stays on one, I tend to leave, because it's solvent, it doesn't tend to move around too much, so I tend to leave those face up. But you could, if it was getting light, you could turn it over and allow it to sink to the top, as it were. But we do refills for those as well. But what we're going to do is use the ink refills for watercolouring. So our refills are £3.50 each. So this is Daffodil Delight, and all I'm going to do is literally put one drop on a block. This is Mango Melody. I'm going to put one drop down here, like so. If you've got a little, you know, like a painting palette, you can put it in there. So We can do exactly the same thing with our Aqua Painter. We can draw a little bit of that ink out. Okay, let me use our little scrap piece here. And you'll see the difference. Because we're using the ink direct, it's a much deeper colour than the equivalent pencil. And you can just literally take that ink and in exactly the same way as we were doing, you can paint onto your stamped image. And again, you can do this in fine detail if you wish. For those of you that follow me, no, I don't. As a general rule, I don't do fine detail. So what you can do is scribble all the way over. Okay, pick up more ink as you need to, and then go back over and add the darker layers. So this is all Daffodil Delight, and then I'm going to add in some Mango Melody as well. So again, this is our shimmer white cardstock. If you're doing this at home and you've got some watercolour paper that you've picked up, then by all means give it a go. As anything, there's always different grades of watercolour paper, but if you're a beginner, just try out with something you've already got. And then if you enjoy doing that, you can always invest in paper that's, you know, a little higher quality. So that is my Daffodil Delight layer. Okay, now I can pick up some Mango Melody and then just add that in. And you can mix those together as well. So I'm just pulling that in where those leaves sort of overlap. So if you've joined me after the start, I am giving away a pack of watercolour pencils today. So I'd love lots of comments. That would really go down well. That just helps me, helps Facebook keep me there. We know what Facebook is like. So you can just literally add that detail in. I'll show you the other sample in a second and you can decide which you prefer. Obviously this is undiluted ink, so it is going to be brighter, but that's not always the effect that you want. There we go. There we are. Now you can leave this on there and come back to it later. Just make sure you don't put anything on top of it, or you can just wipe it off and start again. We've literally reused one drop out of this entire bottle for our watercolouring. There we go. So this is the one with the watercolour pencils on the right hand side, and you can see the depth of colour with the inks as you would expect. Okay, now this is the same as taking ink from an ink pad. If I just press the lid of the ink pad down and open it up, I have my ink here. So you can just wipe off the mango, do the same thing, and use this as a palette. Because this is the same as the ink in the refill, you can get the same effect. Okay, so if you've already got ink pads, you don't need to use a refill. You can just colour in like so. Obviously I've refilled this one so it's really deep colour. If you've got an older ink pad, it might be quite light in colour, but then you can always just buy a refill. You don't need to buy a new ink pad, just buy a new refill and top it up like I showed you earlier on. Now if we have an ink colour that maybe you've had an ink pad for a couple of years and we've changed the colour, just let me know and I can tell you the closest match of colour to that ink pad. Okay, now what I need to do is some of the centre of that sunflower. Hi Christine. Just catching up on your messages, sorry everybody. Thank you for answering the questions. Moretta, so that's how you do yours, with squishing the ink pad. Let me get some bit of brown for the centre. Now I know I've got early espresso because I filled my ink pad recently. So I'm just going to switch over, put a little bit of early espresso on here. Literally a single drop. Okay, now all of these colours in our standard Stampin' Up refills are water based, which is why we can use them as watercolour. But what I would say is this is very concentrated, so don't expect that to wash out of your clothes straight away if you spilt full refill on them. Just saying. Not that I've ever done it, but I'll just give you a warning of that. So I'm just picking up that colour and applying it on here. I can take a bit more colour for the centre, as you can see, and if you decide that is too dark, you can lift some of it out. You can water it down a little bit and move it around. So the refill is as I say, much stronger in colour, but it does give a really nice effect. Just going to do a little bit dark around those edges. Now you can see this piece of paper is curling slightly because I have got quite a lot of water on there. Obviously the ink refill is a liquid form, whereas our pencils are not. So this is going to ripple a little bit while it takes on the water, but you can heat dry it with a heat tool to flatten it. Once it's dry, you could also stand it under a little bit of weight, like a punch or something, and then that will flatten out completely. If you use standard paper like our Whisper White, then that will remain buckled, most likely. So there we are, we have two effects. So this is Watercolor Pencils, this one is ink refills, and you can see the depth of colour that you get with those. Now, let me show you the others as a contrast. This one is blend pens. So same stamp. Obviously this is stamped in a lighter brown, so you will get a different effect anyway. What paper, Babsy? So this is Shimmer White that I've used. shimmer white in both cases. I could use watercolour. Actually, this one is watercolour with pencils. As you can see, actually those are very similar. I was having a play with colours. So watercolour or shimmer white do the same thing basically if you're using Stampin' Up products. So as I say, this one obviously has much more depth of colour. Make sure when you finish using your Aqua Painter that you squeeze some water out of the barrel through the tip and then wipe that on a cloth or a piece of kitchen roll. Otherwise, when you go to pick it up later, it will still have the ink on it. And then with your ink on the blocks, you can just wipe them off like so, or you can leave them to dry a little bit and then use them again later, like so. Now, watercolouring you can do with anything, any outline design, as long as you use a stays on or an archive ink or a permanent ink, archival I should say. So let me mount these up. So if you didn't see any of my earlier videos, my Facebook lives this week, then the whole series will be on YouTube. The last one will go on today. If you want to see how I coloured with blends pens and other bits and pieces. I've just cut some cardstock here. This is Daffodil Delight soft suede layer for that one. And this one I've actually got Grapefruit Grove. I know it's retired, but I just happen to have that size to hand. And it just picks up that little bit of pink on there, orange on there. So I'm going to pop those two together. I'm not going to stick the top layers down. I will do this one actually because that's dry, until it's dry, because you want a nice smooth surface. You can of course put this through an embossing folder. So I might just do that now so you can see the effect again of that embossing folder. Thank you, Babsy. Now I have to remember where I put that embossing folder, because I've tied it up. That's dangerous tidying up, isn't it? I really mustn't do it. Okay, so I've used the Tasteful Textile, so I will do that on this one here because it is dry, just so you can see the effect. I won't do it on this one because it's still wet. I'll just grab my Big Shot from my cupboard. There we go. I'm not going to put it on display because there's not much space on my table. So I'm just going to take that one, pop it into here, like so. And generally, where it's got the Stampin' Up logo, that is the front in the way that it's designed to be used. Obviously, some of them really don't matter because this one could go either way. But on some of them, especially where you've got a floral design, in general you want the emboss section facing up. If you want the deboss section facing up, then just put your paper in the other way round, if that makes any sense. Now obviously beginners wouldn't have an embossing machine. I'm just doing this because I can, because it's Friday. I'm just going to pop that through. So I wonder if you have any plans for this weekend now that the restrictions are beginning to lift a little bit. So here we can see it's perfectly flat. Okay, again, once it's dried it will be perfectly flat. So this one I'm going to pop onto soft suede layer, very narrow border, and then onto my Grapefruit Grove. I'm going to use my Stampin Seal. So this replaces our snail, like so. It's very deceptive because you can't hear it, but it's very sticky. Okay, but it is permanent only after a few minutes, so you do have an opportunity to move it around, lift it off the paper, as long as you haven't gone mad. And you know, if you press it really hard, don't expect it to come off again straight away. And I'm going to pop that onto there, and I'm just going to leave these as plain note cards for everybody. So, and this is the base. So that's the bit I like to have at the bottom, like so. Now, one of the other things you can do with the Aqua Painter, obviously, is create splatters. So I'm just going to bring this one back in, add a little bit of safety with a piece of grid paper. Okay, now let me just add a little bit of ink back after I did some cleaning out. Thanks, Babsy. I really enjoyed using this set, I have to say, and I think there's so much more you could do with it as well. But it's just a little bit of time for some different techniques. So I'm just making sure my Aqua Painter is nice and wet. Find my cloth, like so. And then I'm going to pick up some of that ink, like so. Squeeze it a little bit so I know it's nice and wet. And then it's entirely up to you what method you use. So you can, if you prefer to tap it on a pencil, you can, or on your finger. Quite light. The closer you get to it, try not to spat it everywhere. And I will add the darker one in so that you can see that as well, because it's quite fine. You can flick it as well if you prefer, you know, like you used to do with a toothbrush. But I'm always wary about doing that in case it goes absolutely everywhere. So just make this nice and wet. If you do this, I recommend you have a larger piece of grid paper, because it does tend to go a little bit distant. But if I can bring that up, and if you can see that detail or not on the background. Oh, you can see it. Good. Just looking at the replay now, I can see it. Perfect. Okay, so this is going to get layered onto, again, soft suede and then onto, in this case, Daffodil Delight. I'm not going to layer it until it's dry because I want it nice and flat, and I may put it through the embossing folder as well. Let me take that piece away. Let me wipe down my surface in case anything has gone untoward and out of the area. And that's it really. So that's doing some watercolouring. So this is with pencils, and the nice thing about this is you can, if you're just using the pencils on their own, you can go back in and add more colour. So if it lightens up and you think, oh, I need a bit more depth of colour in there, you can go back over and add more detail. Now what I wouldn't do at this point is add too much water, because you've got your layer of card behind it, and you don't want that, because obviously the card is not watercolour card, the soft suede layer. But it does mean if you think, oh, I want this a little bit brighter, or I need to introduce some other element of colour, you can just go back in and add to it. So you can see there, hopefully. This is where it helps not to have too fine a tip, because then you're laying down, you've got more surface area of the pencil to lay down the colour. Whereas if you've got the very fine tip, you're only laying down a small amount at a time. So I can just literally fill this in with more colour if I wish. I could add a little bit of more coral here and in here if I wanted to, like so. But as I say, just be a little bit careful not to add too much water afterwards. So there we go. Thank you, Babsy. Yeah, the replay's a bit of a bind, but hey ho. At least I've got it set up now that I'm not looking through my phone at the comments, which I was before. Thank you, Karen. So, as I say, my whole suite this week was featuring the sunflowers. Here's a few more samples for you if you haven't seen them and you want to go back. So this was Wednesdays, and this was Thursdays. So basically stepping it up a day at a time this week. So it is really a nice suite. So it's stamp set and dies. You can buy them individually or you can buy them together. If you're interested in joining my team, you could get the bundle of the stamp sets and the dies absolutely free this month till the end of June. So our normal joining offer is £99, and you get to choose £130 of product, entirely your choice. But you also in June get to choose a free bundle. So you could add this set. Ah yes, I think the blue was one of my favourite too, I have to say. You could add this set. I'm just finding it in the catalogue. If I can find it again. So you could have this Celebrate Sunflowers bundle, which is £47.50, which is the stamp sets at 22 and the dies. You can have that absolutely free if you join the team in June. So if you're interested in that and the other benefits of being part of my lovely team, so quite a few, it is the new blue, thank you. Thanks, Christine. Yeah, so quite a few of my lovely team members are here. So I've got Tracy and Babsy, Linda. So if you ladies have got any comments on Carol's here. If you ladies have got any comments about being part of my team, you know, what fun you've had, feel free to share those with anybody now, because they'll see the comments now. They'll also see it on replay on Facebook, not on YouTube, but they'll see it on Facebook. I do love to welcome all people to my team. Hobby crafters are absolutely welcome. That's where you join us as a demonstrator, but you purchase products at a discount just for yourself. You can obviously combine that with sales to friends if you want to, but there's no obligation to do that. Or you can join as a business demonstrator and intend to run it as a business, or anything in between. Often I'll find hobby demonstrators become business demonstrators along the line, but there's no pressure from me to do that whatsoever. So we have regular meetings. Obviously these are all online, but nice and relaxed, informal, hopefully keep you up to date. And the good thing about joining now is that you'll get to see the Christmas catalogue next week. So as demonstrators we get to see it online next week, which is very exciting. I know we've only just got this catalogue, but hey ho, things move on, don't they? So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Let me just see if there's any recent comments. Thank you. So yes, Karen, this is the new blue Misty Moonlight mixed with Night of Navy. So this is Misty Moonlight and that's Night of Navy behind, which is really nice. Let's see what other samples I have. This is just a background card that I did. A lot of my cards have gone out already. This is one I did yesterday. These are from the dies, but the paper is from the paper stack here. It's a really pretty floral paper stack, and I used the daisy punch for this to match the daisy from there. So that was one I did yesterday, and then there's assorted ones that I've done during the week. So feel free. Oh, thank you, Carol. The team are all lovely and friendly, and we are crafting buddies. It's good. I have to say, a lot of my friendships, well, a lot of my friendships are all from people in my team and other crafters. So thanks, Babsy. Thanks, Carol, for your lovely comments. So it is a really nice bundle. I have to say, I wasn't going to buy it to start with, and then I saw lots of lovely samples, and that's usually what does it for me, when I see other people creating clever things with it. But what I like about it is, for me, as you well know, I'm not a fussy crafter. I'm a clean, simple, emphasis on the simple crafter. And so this suits me really nicely. Just a main image or small images that you can colour in. You can die cut them if you wish, but equally they work really well on their own. Here's another sample of a flower. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I will draw, I'll pop all of the names of anybody who's commented today onto a wheel of names, and I will draw that live here in about 5 minutes. So hopefully one of you will be the lucky recipient of this set of watercolour pencils. And if you're not the lucky recipient and you would like some, just ask me for more details. You can buy a set of 13 or a set of 10, and they do have different colours. So obviously, ideally, if you like the whole colour range, you can buy both of those. But they're still good value as they are basically just over £1 per pencil, and they will keep you going for a long time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a nice weekend. It's Friday afternoon. I'm just about to go and have myself a nice cup of coffee, put my feet up for the first time today, and I really appreciate you joining me. Look after yourselves, look after each other, stay safe, won't you, and do keep crafting. Thanks for your lovely comments today, everybody. Take care. Good luck to the winner. Thank you. Bye bye.